a symbol of the hunt. Many, nowadays, seem to handle the blood exceedingly poorly. Eileen's duty may once have been straightforward, her marks easy to spot, but now it was spread all over town, which in turn made her feel like she was doing too little, seeing how having a problem with blood was not exclusive to the hunters. Regardless, there were alarmingly many cases of blood drunkenness out of the many church hunters, many of whom were originally clerics. But not only them, for the citizens themselves seemed to fall more rapidly into beasthood, causing the hunters to expose themselves further. But oddly enough, at least to Eileen personally, what more frequently would come across as bothersome was the idea that one of these days she would spy Ludwig as her mark. Although a mere occasional thought at first, it developed into a hesitancy that regularly overcame her at every target. At one occasion, the mark had even slipped her sight. Embarrassingly unprofessional. Tonight, she was relieved when she did not recognize the lumbering hunter who still dragged the arm of a previous prey behind him. Although looking like once belonging to a healthy human, it was badly maimed, and its true nature was hard to discern. The hunter, however, did fulfill every tell of blood mania. Grunting breaths, sporadic behavior, and obvious bloodthirst. The hunter was walking out in the open through a narrow street in central Yarnam. As night had fallen, many were fortunately wise enough to stay inside. This one would likely jump at any sign of life to quench the unending thirst for blood. Truly a tragic and piteous state, one that Eileen intended to free him from. As he was utterly occupied by crudely investigating the windows on each side of the street, she managed to approach silently. But just a few feet away, his enhanced senses picked up on her presence, and he turned with a loud grunt, bordering on a roar. She quickly stepped to the side, and he brandished his silver sword. He leapt at her, but missed as she stepped under his brutish form towards his back. She swiped at his back, but he was impressively alert and stepped forward. He turned and started to wildly swing the blade at her. He had good reach, but he was careless, a common weakness. She fired a round that surprised him as he was flailing about. She stepped forward to him, now reeling from the shot. She thrusted out both blades and they impacted. Though she was certain she hit right in his stomach, the fiend swiped with his free hand and managed to shove her away. She briefly retreated, but like it was nothing, he retaliated. He plunged the blade with all his might down at her. Easy enough to avoid, and the metal hit hard stone. She started to furiously, yet calculated, make several swipes at his side. To her surprise, he just took it for a brief second. Then a murmur came up all the way from his belly. It grew in volume until he let it escape through his mouth. A loud, high-pitched inhuman roar was unleashed into the night. A violent eruption occurred with his body as muscles tensed so violently they sprayed out blood. The force of his growth was so prominent it sent her flying back. She did not fall prone and quickly regained balance and landed on her feet. The man had transformed partially before her very eyes. Having grown out of his clothes that were torn at the arms and ill-fitted over his new shape. Still mostly human, hair had sprouted like weeds on his head and through his clothes. The mouth had protruded forward into a partial muscle. The nose was crooked, having suffered from the violent thrust of his jaw shooting forward. It immediately leapt like a dog, brandishing its claws and roaring loud at her. She narrowly escaped the fangs as they tore up her back. She leapt to the side, but felt the sharp claws graze at her back, lightly tearing into her skin. Stumbling, she turned, only to catch it in another frightful pursuit. With the back of its clawed hand, it turned and slammed her, bringing her to the ground. Now it was upon her, and she had no time to think nor react. Claws dug into her sides, relocating her insides and causing warm blood to drench her body and clothes. Just as it started to lift her up, its face exploded with fire. Someone had fired a volley of rounds at it. The claws left her body and were brought up to cover its face. She was left on the ground, lying on her back, feeling coldness on her open wounds as blood pooled around her. Unbelievably so, she felt like she was dying. Slightly turning her head, she saw, but not heard, Ludwig, followed by blurry figures. Before the dark took her sight, a bright blade of holy light flashed where Ludwig stood and was sent towards her, like it was embracing her. When she opened her eyes, she lay where she had collapsed. She could still see the night sky, albeit starless. It felt like a simple, short rest had passed, that she had fallen asleep and slept for about 20 minutes, never slipping into that truly deep slumber. The streets were empty, and she felt no pain, only its memory. She sat up. The pool of blood was still around her. She thought for a moment, puzzled by the event. She felt like she had missed something. Was this death? Or just a bad dream? The pool of crimson started to expand in some mysterious fashion around her. Though no blood came from her, it was visibly growing in size. It must be a dream, then. Small bubbles appeared next to her. Then something emerged. Or rather, like something was formed by the blood. She stood quickly and looked upon the massing blood as she backed away from the circle of liquid, formed by the blood, a head peeked up. The head of a wolf, it seemed. The head was followed by a grotesque body, enlarged ribcage and long, lanky arms that ended in razor fingers. It glared at her with malice. Yet there was a strong, addictive allure in those yellow eyes. She was captivated as it slowly emerged. Like a dog, it sniffed her way and cautiously, almost friendly, inched closer. But her gaze was stolen by a little glow down the dark street. She completely averted her attention from the blood fiend to see what it was. A tiny person, not bigger than a kitten. Suddenly she felt a healthy fear for the creature. She was repulsed by the blood and the thing it had birthed. With a cowardly squeak she ran past it and towards the little person. Before she could fully reach it, the street disappeared and she fell into a dark void, hearing a low, echoing roar and gurgle of the beast fading out behind her. Once more she awoke, this time on hard stone, with grass growing through the cracks. She lay on her stomach and quickly turned her head up to see the whereabouts of the beast. But no such thing in sight. Before her was the old workshop that stood by the great tree. She instantly made eye contact with a woman standing with her hands folded at her waist. She felt embarrassed for her appearance on the ground and quickly picked herself up. She was distracted from the woman by her surroundings. It was beautiful and frightening at the same time. Both sensations struggling to take primary hold of her. She was no longer in Yarnam, but somewhere else. A vast expanse of cloudy landscape stretched out in all directions, with large pillars, reminiscent of detached tree trunks, was scattered around, emerging from the fog down below and vanishing into the clouds above. A world of nothing, and she was in its middle. She turned back to the only other person there, who patiently waited. "Welcome, good hunter," she said in a strange accent. "I am a doll, and I am here to tend to you. This is a dream, where you may call your home. For now." Awkwardly, while Eileen relieved herself of the beaked mask and took off her pointed hat, the woman reached out her hand to greet her. She was so astonished that she neglected it for a long time, until she realized the polite gesture and reached to shake it. Curiously, it provoked an amused chuckle, as if the woman thought something so mundane was very amusing and exotic. Afterwards, she looked around, feeling the cold air and breathing freely without the mask, scenting the sweet smell of the flowers and another very unique and undefined smell. "This is a dream. It is. And who are you? A doll? Alright. Course you are. How did I end up here? I don't recall. Well, I did not fall asleep. There is a reason. You should speak with German. His purpose is to aid you hunters. I thought that was your purpose. German is very wise. He can answer any query better than I would. Where can I find Mr. Gammon? In the workshop. She elegantly extended a long arm and pointed to the only structure in sight, namely the exact duplicate of the abandoned workshop she was familiar with. She walked up the homely stone steps and peeked inside. She saw a vibrant and welcoming interior. A fire was burning in the hearth. Bookshelves filled with many varying copies, some even piled on the ground. Next to the hearth was the workbench encumbered with tools and materials. On the wall above it hung almost every example of trick weapons that she was familiar with. Next to a table, on which stood a tea service, sat an old man in a wheelchair. He was leaning on a cane and looked expressionlessly at her.
Welcome to the hunter's dream. This is the workshop where many hunters come to hone their strength, as it is sometimes needed.
He spoke slowly and articulately. The tone of voice was pleasant and soothing. Are you Gammon? He nodded.
I am a friend to you hunters. There is not much I can do besides to give some advice. So, feel free to ask.
Very well. This strikes me as no ordinary dream.
It is not. This is a sanctuary. But while you are here, you are forced to hunt. You will face unending death. Such is your plight.
You knew Kadok, the old hunter of hunters. His eyes narrowed and looked down.
Oh, yes. I once did. Yes, of course. It is your duty. There will be many of them. You are no ordinary hunter, nor will you hunt ordinary hunters. They grow, and they become more with every night.
I know, but what's causing it?
Why? The blood. There is no return for them, I'm afraid. It is you that must see to their fates.
Me? Am I not dead? He smirked, the only expression that had ever come over his face.
You are just dreaming.
Very well. How do I wake up then?
Touch the headstones. Focus on them and you will awaken from the dream at a lantern. The lanterns mark the way for hunters and beckons them back into the dream.
Very well, Mr. Gammon. Is there any other good advice you may give?
Let the doll take care of you. It does a great work with every hunter that passes through here.
She nodded and walked out the door behind the old man. When she cast a glance back as she went, he was gone. She walked around the proper, down a wide curved path along the edge of the evidently floating landmass, lined with small headstones before a metal fence. On the way she noticed a little bird bath. In it sat about 5 of those little figures she had seen before. On closer inspection, they looked terribly frightful. Emaciated bodies and horribly disfigured faces. Despite their hideousness, they seemed friendly to her and waved in her direction. She avoided them. What are those things in the bath? She asked the doll as she came up to her. Oh, the little ones. They hail from the dream. They have taken a liking to you hunters. You should see what they can offer you. Thanks. But no thanks. Gammon mentioned something about you taking care of me? What does he mean by that? Her face was uncannily still and never showed any expression. You will find the echoes of blood. I can channel them into your spirit, giving you new strength. Oh, sounds impressive. How do you go about that? It is simple. The echoes of blood hold memories of those that came before. I can bestow it onto you. I will show you. Give me your hand and shut your eyes. Eileen looked puzzled at her, but since they were in a dream, she did as asked. She heard the doll kneeling down and felt her touch as she took her right hand in hers. Her fingers were indeed made in porcelain, like one expects a doll to be. She felt a surge in her being, then it was over. She opened her eyes and watched as the doll stood back up. Oh, what did you do?
I showed you.
But nothing happened.
I just did a little.
Disappointed, she nodded and looked around. Next to them, on the other side of the little stone path leading to the workshop, were about 4 ornate headstones erected along the slope. She pointed at the one closest.
Are those the way back?
The doll nodded. She nodded back and waved, to which the doll in turn waved back. When she came upon the headstone, the little ones emerged at its base. She was slightly unnerved by their appearance and their awestruck low mumble, but did indeed appear very respectful and gentle towards her. While reaching out a hand for them, it was like falling asleep, and everything became dark. She awoke again, this time suspecting it to be for real. She lay on a sickbed. At her side sat a doctor, a blood minister to be specific. On a chair sat Ludwig, who shut up upon their eyes meeting, and visible relief washed over him. To her arm was a needle attached, that led to a strung-up vial of the Yarnam blood. Yes. Is Viola occupied?
Oh, don't you worry, Henrik.
The heavy-set nurse assured him in a much more louder manner compared to the tone he had interacted with.
Sweet Viola always has time for her father. Just go right ahead now. Go on, you.
She gestured for him to enter through the paneled double door right beside the reception desk. Henrik made a coughed muttering instead of thanking the lady, and he proceeded to escape the embarrassment through the door. He had in fact prepared himself slightly on his way. Whether he liked it or not, he had become a known name around the clinic. Though it brought joy that his Viola was so well received, he could not help the fact that the environment reminded him of the chaotic and terrible circumstances surrounding her birth, despite the successful outcome of it. Additional frights admittedly lingered concerning his own worry for ending up in one himself. There was but one doctor in Viola's company once he entered the sick room, save for the 3 ailing patients inhabiting a bed each in the rows along the walls. The 2 of them stood beside the bed of a man. When Viola saw him, he was about to close the door, giving an apologetic gesture with his hand, but never managed to complete the maneuver before she had ignored his mannerisms and waved eagerly for him to come over. When her motions became so grand that the doctor himself turned away from the patient, he was forced to comply. She gave an asking look to the doctor, who gave a grunted shrug. She skipped over silently to greet him with a hug, nearly compromising the lunch bag he had brought.
I only came with lunch. Did not want to disturb.
Oh, you never do.
You seem busy.
Oh, not really. Come.
Oh, I shouldn't.
No, please, it's all right. We are good friends.
He was dragged over, still holding the miniature basket, thinking it was perhaps improper to befriend one's patients. But Viola was known to befriend just about anyone. One of the few rays of sunlight in a town darkened by paranoia. The doctor was a disheveled-looking man, about the same age as himself, and only nodded to him, as they have done at occasions before, never exchanging any words. The man on the bed was currently having bandages removed from his leg. He was a tall lad, perhaps only a few years senior to his own daughter. There had been a metal caged cast that partially surrounded his lower leg, that was now being removed.
This is my father. You know, the hunter.
The young man tried to position him so his back was completely straight, while simultaneously reaching out a hand to greet him. Henrik was quick to feel a kinship, due to how his significant other would also introduce him hastily and against his will to her acquaintances. A pleasure to meet you, sir.
He comes from up north. Traveled all the way here for the blood transfusion.
He now seemed embarrassed over his weakened state, and shot Viola a quick glance. Yes, well, the leg, you see, sir, never worked properly. And, as a member of the clergy, in my case, it was something of a pilgrimage. Mm-hmm. Henrik looked at the leg, now completely free of bandages and apparatuses. Oh, but I never could imagine it actually worked as quickly as they say. Now, don't get ahead of yourself, sir. The doctor gave a gentle knock with his knuckles at the knee, and the leg jolted in reflex. Keep in mind that you have never properly used it. It is healed. The bone structure is intact, as you can see. And the reflexes are as they should. But give it some time before you gallivant around properly. Running, jumping and such. How long can that take? Henrik thought that perhaps he should leave, but wanted to exchange a few more words with Viola before doing so. Oh, it depends. Not long, but don't get too boisterous. 3-4 weeks, estimately.
Oh, don't worry.
Viola lit up the room with her smile.
I'll make sure you'll walk again.
Now, don't be too generous with your goodwill. You are still needed at the clinic, young lady.
Don't worry, sir. I'll make it work.
She laid a hand on the patient's shoulder carringly. He looked relieved, and Henrik decided that perhaps he should leave after all. It was like Henrik awoke from a dream when he caught the smell of dill and the sound of boiling water. He put down the handle detached from the saw cleaver on the table and walked out into the kitchen. Fiona had become quite proficient at cooking. Both of them had always been terrible at it, but after the arrival of a child, Fiona had developed a skill for it. He had never seen her capable of the archetypical mother role. She was as much of a pure-blooded hunter as he was. He had naively thought they would continue to hunt as normal, knowing of several other old-timers that had children and hunted as passionately as ever. But seeing that crumpled little face of their newly delivered, screaming daughter, the hunt suddenly was not the same for both of them. But for him, old habits had begun to gnaw at him, while leaving his wife in peace. Although the hunt was forever changed for them both, it seemed to have changed in different ways. So was it that each time Henrik smelled the ever-growing deliciousness of Fiona's culinary skills, it was bittersweet. He wanted both worlds, but reality dictated otherwise. While he leaned over her shoulder to get a glimpse of her work, the door opened, marking the homecoming of their daughter. But behind the familiar quick tappings of Viola's feet, there was another set of heavier boots following.
Mother, Father, I have something to tell you.
After her, taking off his hat, was the man from the clinic he had encountered roughly a month ago.
Bad news after dinner, love,
Fiona urged, having not yet acknowledged their guest.
It's not bad news. But I am thinking about moving out. Great. Have you found a place? We have been looking at some, yes?
We, Henrik said, paternally menacing.
All right.
She sat down at the table.
You prefer me to move out alone?
He sat down opposite her, but said nothing.
I'm sorry, all right? But I knew it would be like this. But he is adamant on staying in Yarnam. He has been doing good work with the church, and now he wishes to become a hunter. Just like you, Dad.
He nodded shrewdly. I see.
Sir?
The young man stepped forward and stood behind Viola.
It was because of the healing church I came here. I knew early on that it was a calling that drew me here. And now, the gods having given back my leg, the sign is clear of how I should best serve them, sir.
He glanced over at Viola, and the corner of his mouth twitched. And, if I may, your daughter has taught me so much that I would never have anticipated learning from the church. No obligations back home, then? Viola put her hands over his.
I know it's sudden, Father, but there is something precious between us, and I would not forgive myself if I let it slip away.
He saw the eyes of his wise daughter move away from him and onto the man. Hunter's work is dangerous, Fiona commented. But I understand. You want to fight for something. Don't you know it too, dear? She looked at him and raised one eyebrow. He nodded back at her. Hunter's work. You'll need a teacher.
Yes, Father, he would.
Have you been over at the workshop? Yes, sir. And how are you with the weapon? Well... typical. He looked at the two of them. He felt old. But it did not feel as bad as he thought it would, seeing how they smiled at each other. I'll make a decent hunter out of you, but then you must promise to keep those beasts away from my daughter. Now that she won't be at home, where me and her mother can do so. Oh, I will, sir. I promise you both that. Good. Then we'll get started tomorrow. It's a long way to be a proficient hunter.
Don't be too harsh on him, Dad.
I will have to. And you will have to take it. I never got your name. The man reached out to take his waiting hand. Gascoigne. Gascoigne shot up from lying on his stomach. He felt out of breath, then realized he could not breathe at all. He heaved for a moment with panic in his head. But as suddenly as he had awoken, did the issues vanish. He could breathe normally, like nothing was ever wrong to begin with. He remained on his hands and knees, looking into the cobblestone. His breathing growing calmer and calmer. When calm truly came into his mind, the pleasant environment seemed wrong. It was very bright, and the air seemed pleasantly cooler. He looked up and thought he must have truly died. Why else would he have gone from the nightly streets of the hunt into such a wonderful and serene place? He came to his feet and looked around the garden. alone in a vast, misty landscape, with massive pillars spread over it. His eyes drifted towards the impressive stone building. They ultimately landed on what looked like a figure sitting down close by the house. A woman facing a grave. When he had walked halfway up the winding path, lined with bushes on the left, he noticed that she must be asleep.
Oh, Flora.
He stopped when he heard her whisper. He proceeded, but stopped again when he saw a group of 4 tiny people urgently tugging at the end of her brown cape. Small bluish creatures, like children, but with disproportionately large heads, all seemingly deformed. The woman's head slowly moved up, having apparently been successfully awakened. She looked down at them, then over at him, and hurried to her feet with a gasp.
Good hunter. Pardon me. You must just have arrived.
Yes, but how did I get here?
You are dreaming. It is very normal for hunters to dream. Be at ease here.
A dream? But I was just out hunting. Did I die? She nodded.
You did. But a hunter of the dream simply falls asleep for the moment.
Her head turned to look away from him, down the path he had come from. When he did the same, he saw that a woman had appeared in the spot he had been prior. She was dressed in a fashionable but sturdy overcoat and wore a top hat. When she saw them, she sighed and casually walked over. She nodded to him as she passed, then aimed her full attention to the woman, tilting her head slightly backwards to look up at her. While everything so far was surreal and confusing, everything came off as normal as ever, resulting in him calmly observing everything that happened with the fascination of a child.
Hello again. Am I interrupting? You never are a good hunter. What can I help you with? Well, that thing you do. Was hoping it could make me swing the hammer a bit easier. You require more strength. Certainly. Give me your hand.
She did so, and the tall woman knelt down. When she touched the hunter's hand, there came a bright red glow for a moment. The hunter took a deep breath. Then it was over, and the woman stood back up.
Thanks. Feels good.
She nodded politely at her. The hunter then turned to him, promptly reaching out a hand to greet him.
Sorry, not usually many others around here. Name's Henriette.
A hunter?
Indeed. And you?
Gascoigne. I was just hunting and now I'm... She nodded. smiling understandingly.
It's your first time. Plain to see.
She turned to the woman.
Is German around?
The woman nodded.
He is here somewhere, although he should have come out to greet our new hunter. Why don't I show him around for the time being? There are plenty of other times to speak with the old man. Oh, of course. Take your time.
Henriette bowed properly, and the woman curtsied subtly.
Here.
She motioned for him to follow her by dunking her hand in his pack, then walked towards the house in terror.
Here's the workshop. You can fix your weapons and such here.
My weapon?
You have one, right?
Right at that moment, he noticed an axe, very similar to his own, leaning against a work table on the opposite wall. He walked closer to inspect it, finding that if it was not his own, it was an exact copy.
This is it?
She asked after having watched him stare. She took it and laid it upon the table.
You can use these to make them stronger.
She retrieved a small crystal, shaped like a stick, with some cloudy red colorations to it.
You can have this one if you want.
What is it? He stood beside her over the table.
They are bloodstones. You can find them in your prey. Think they are from cold blood, like old blood that hardens. German told me it was usable, so I've been collecting them.
I'm sorry. Henriette, was it? She nodded, not fazed by the turning of his tone into a perturbed one. What am I doing here? This all seems... I don't know how to make sense of it. A dream, I'm told. So it's not real? She sighed, put her hands on her hips, and tilted her head slightly upwards, as a sympathetic expression came about her.
You're right. Why don't we dispel it all? Come here.
She walked through the interior, out on the long end's exit, where a path of stone steps curved downwards to the right. Along it, on the left, stood 4 headstones. She stopped at the one at the base of the slope. As she did, the little people from before emerged. Some of them held up their hands in prayer. Others seemed to lovingly reach after her. When he came up to her side, their attention shifted to him, equally reverential.
You let the messengers take you back. Simple as that. I'll go first.
She knelt down and reached her hand to them. For some reason, he expected that the little people would sprout wings and carry her away over the land. But she simply blurred out, as if having been made out of smoke. She faded into the environment and was gone. He remained standing for some time, looking around sheepishly. His eyes landed on the woman who had remained standing where she was. She gave him a light wave. He waved back after an awkward delay. Then he too knelt down as the messengers emerged. As he hesitantly gave them his hand, they never managed to take it, before his vision blurred as if blanketed by mist, and it became dark. Then he opened his eyes and was looking into a blue glowing lantern placed in the dirt. He stood up quickly, startled by a combination of everything. It was now night, and he was back in Yharnam. He and Henriette stood on a round patch of grass with a street running around it, houses encircling them. In the very far distance, he saw the large cathedral clock tower. He was somewhere south of the central district.
And there you go. How does it feel to be awake?
She reached out her hands. Hauntingly, a beast somewhere howled in the night as if provoked by her. Honestly, not that great. They both chuckled.
You want to go back?
No, that wasn't a dream?
The doll calls it a dream. And I guess it's somewhat accurate.
The doll?
The woman. Treat her well, you hear? She will turn your hunting prey into new strength.
Ah, I see. Like with you.
Indeed. She calls it blood echoes.
He made an exhaustive sigh, which made her nervously snigger.
Pardon the mess. Actually, on my first visit, Gelmir just told me to go out and hunt. And I get it. There's a lot all at once. And we hunters don't need as much thinking now, do we?
No. I suppose not. Just to hunt, you say?
You can hunt without the threat of death. Touch a lantern here, and the messengers will carry you away to the dream. Or, well, call them your little guardians. They will do the same if you fall in your hunt.
Yeah. So I did die. I thought that... I thought for a moment that it was just a dream. I have died?
That's how I ended up there first.
So all hunters just arrive in the dream? Then back to hunting? Her posture slouched very suddenly, and her face grew just a hint more sullen in the blue glow of the lantern, where the little messengers remained.
No, it's not all of us. Not many, even. I was told that for many nights to come, the beasts will loom large, and come from where we least expect it. We hunters of the dream must face this overwhelming threat.
Where we least expect it? What does that mean?
I don't really know. But I happened upon that hunter of hunters in there once. I couldn't help but think, you know, since she was there, maybe it's us, the hunters, we should watch the closest.
Gascoigne stood outside the entry door, his axe held limply by his side. He did not know why he waited to go inside. There was nothing in his head to begin with. He stood for so long, he began to wonder what really bothered him. When he could not define it, he simply decided to head inside. It was quiet, and he headed directly to the kitchen, heading through it into a small room where he took off his hunting attire and placed his armaments in a closet. Again, he remained standing. He recalled the dream. Perhaps that was it. It had not been a dream after all. Not that kind of dream, at least. He remembered it like anything else. He had been someplace else. Did he dare to think it was true? That were he to die, would he simply arrive back there? Spared the so pleasantly simple and inescapable destiny of any man? Eventually he walked out and found Viola standing in the doorway. Judging by her dress, she had just stepped out of bed. She looked as if she was freezing, but it was not particularly cold inside. Hey. Did I wake you?
How did it go?
He walked to her. She seemed to become colder even when he laid his arms around her. Fine as always.
Okay. I just had this dream that...
She moved away from him, took his hand and led him up the stairs to the bedroom. A candle was lit, and beside it stood a little box that she took. What is that? He asked, and she started turning a wheel. It was a music box that started to play.
I got this from Mom today. Nice, isn't it?
Very pleasant. He sat down on the bed. When he relaxed, his back started to ache, but it vanished once he settled.
Said she. I don't know if I believe it, but she heard it in a dream. Then she made this.
She sat down next to him on the bedside, the song still playing.
I just heard it before waking up, just now. Then you came home.
She smiled a little, looking down at the box.
Like it called you home to me.
Dear, the hunting, it's...
You'll promise you'll come home, right? Always?
He sat quietly, listening to the music as it played. Eventually she looked up at him and he met her eyes. A dream, you say? Did your dad tell you anything about a dream in his past? She blinked, then drew for air and looked around the room, searching her memory.
He did, actually. Said it kept him and Mom safe on the hunt. That they always found their way home because of it. Said we would all come there one day. In the end, you know.
He smiled and took the music box, while the other arm was laid over her shoulders to pull her closer. They sat so until the tune finished. He's right. I'll always come home to you. I'm sure I will hear this when I dream and think of you. Her shoulders relaxed and she felt very warm. Henrik caught in his peripheral how Gascoigne twirled with the medallion he frequently wore and muttered under his breath. He eventually caught onto his glaring and smiled cheekily. You should try it. He loaded the chamber of his pistol and cocked it back, then tapped lightly and soundlessly the pommel of his axe in the ground. Ready when you are. Henrik nodded and looked ahead. From behind the bushes they crouched behind, they looked out over the lesser park area surrounded by tall buildings. Only 3 trees stood within its perimeter. Usually when the night became quiet, it meant that especially cunning beasts were afoot. Oh, finally. Footsteps and torchlight approached, down from a small passageway. A group of normal townsfolk, led by a single holy blade, paired with 2 normal church hunters in black. Henrik took out and held a slender throwing knife in his hand. He listened past the steps, the nervous grunts of the group as they walked straight onto the grass. Everything was dead silent around them, even Gascoigne. But then he heard just a light scraping, followed by something wet, just a tiny amount, hitting against stone, and was quite near. Being concealed near the corner of the half-circle park, a faint rustle of leaves sounded a small distance away from the corner the group had emerged from. A black mass leapt out soundlessly to pounce upon the last of the oblivious party. He threw the knife as soon as the assailant had revealed itself in the darkness. A roar erupted that alerted the group, and right before them landed a hulking 7 feet tall bundle of tufted fur. A hunched creature with giant arms and bent knees, as if suffering from its own massive weight. The face retained some of its previously recognizable features, albeit with a wide mouth constantly open from the heavy breaths, giving it a sinister grin. The group fumbled to get as far away and tripped over each other, while the experienced hunters drew their trick weapons. Gascoigne leapt over the bush with a loud, growling scream and swung downward with the axe at a beast whose attention he had earned by the spectacle. The swing fell short as the beast leapt back. Henrik threw another knife, now aimed more precisely at its head, while Gascoigne drew out the handle and thrusted the axe like a spear towards the monstrosity. Their attacks impacted more or less at the same time, and the beast scurried further back like a rat, despite its humongous form. Gascoigne swiped broadly with the halberd-like armament, and Henrik too joined in by rushing around his partner and fired a round from his pistol. The beast let out a roar and slammed both hands into the ground before Gascoigne, that carried so much force that he seemed to be pushed back by sheer proximity. The two black hunters had entered and began to lash the beast with their threaded canes, which seemed only to tangle the metal whip in the abundant fur. Gascoigne shortened the axe and menacingly approached by swinging it with incredible force that the beast deflected with its bare hands. Henrik ran up past the other hunters. His partner fired a shot before stepping backwards, allowing Henrik to take his place. Flinching from the shot, the beast looked back just when Henrik threw another dagger that hit so critically that it tossed its hands up and stood tall on its legs, roaring at the sky. He slashed at the exposed legs. The beast curled over, and he plunged the saw blade into the beast's scalp, burying it deep enough to cleave through the entire forehead. Its eyes rolled back, and the sound it made was a guttural cough, while it slowly lowered itself onto the ground. With one foot against the face, he retrieved his saw cleaver.
I say,
The holy blade sauntered up to him while he distanced himself from the gore.
timely arrival, good chap. Timely indeed. Some fiends can be so infuriatingly sketchy, no?
Henrik looked over at the townspeople, who stood trembling with their hunting utensils clutched tight to their persons. You're off from the band. The holy blade's chummy expression did not change.
Ah, yes, you see, a little detour, simple as that. Supposed to round up some more members and rendezvous at Watery Lane. Will you join us?
No. Gascoigne stepped forward. We usually hunt alone.
Aha! Old-fashioned. Well, you seem to know what you're doing. Hats off to you. And good hunting.
He joined with the others and made a few gestures towards their destination. Henrik began walking towards the small streetway west of the direction the rerouted hunting party had taken. Should we not consider hunting with the captain? Seems everyone does. Gascoigne quickly stepped after him. Not most. the Holy Blades, and some others, steers clear of the captain's hunting band. Huh. Does not all the beasts run to the giant horde? The easy target, so to speak. He shook his head. How many beasts do you think there are, son? As soon as they emerged onto a large street, with even patches of greenery and streetlights running through its middle, they were beset by a roar and black shape flying at them from the left. Henrik ducked forward and rolled further into the street while Gascoigne had jumped backwards. He threw a knife that missed and threw a second one that hit. The beast shook its grinning head furiously from side to side, letting out a roaring scream from a malformed mouth, and ran at him swiping. He swung the cleaver at the first set of clawed fingers, coming at him before the beast flew to the side. In its stead now stood Gascoigne, having forcefully sideswept the thing away with his long hilted axe. He proceeded to lunge after it with a downward swing that was evaded while Henrik circled around to the side. From Henrik's point of view, with the beast between him and Gascoigne, he saw another much larger beast emerge from the darkness between the houses, behind his partner. It peered out with a long muzzle, almost like a beak, as it leaned on two massive and slender arms. It quickly turned to them, and Henrik shouted for Gascoigne to turn around. He managed to do so, barely in time to dodge one of the massive arms swiping towards him, trying to push him into the house beside them. It emerged fully. With the body of a very large humanoid, it walked on its stilted limbs, with its legs constantly bent, with hair falling down over its head and along its entire back. Henrik swiped with the cleaver and moved further back to distract the prior beast to himself, as Gascoigne reeled from having been partially impacted by the strike. Evidently more hurt by it than he thought, he moved away slowly and stumblingly. The beast swiped again with the other hand, tossing him out into the street. Henrik felt the urge to simply freeze, to not do anything, as he saw how his son-in-law had fallen and stopped moving entirely. But he didn't. It was only a momentary notion, and he calmly took out a knife. While he had remained still, watching his ward perish, the beast before him took the opportunity to lunge with its jaw wide open. He ducked forward, jabbing the dagger up into its lower jaw, released it and spun around it, cutting down with the cleaver into the back of its neck as it passed him. It fell dead, and he turned swiftly around as the much larger fiend roared in the direction it had tossed Gascoigne. The disheartening feeling from before had bloomed out from a cold and crippling disparity into an explosion of rage, and it was not entirely a conscious action that made him cut with the cleaver into the side of the creature's leg. He drew the saw and cut again so furiously he screamed in the process. It stumbled back, but swiped at him, hitting him in the shoulder and causing him to stumble out into the street. There he found that the body of Gascoigne, the husband of his daughter, was gone. He turned, but had delayed in the insight for too long and faced the massive hand crashing towards him. He was thrown aside and tumbled to the ground onto his back. He turned up to see the glowing eyes, devoid of humanity, approach him with arms outstretched, like a bestial embrace. He felt then his body relax and the air escape him. He saw an image of how his wife looked when just the two of them hunted. How she would look, knitting clothes for their child, equally beautiful in both scenes. Flashing before him was also his daughter, both as a child and grown woman, with a loving husband at her side, both looking happy. Then he saw himself and Fiona in the dream and thought it would be all right. He smiled as he saw the yellow glow of the bestial eyes just a few feet from him. Then he felt nothing. Everything had left him, and he saw only the yellow eyes. A furious scream split the air, and the black shape threw itself against the neck of the massive beast. The two bodies tumbled away, and Gascoigne rolled off it, returning towards it with a lightning-quick slash of his axe down at its throat. The destructive hands reached around him, but he came down with the axe a second time. The third time he did so, the head separated from the body. The arms tensed for a second and twitched before falling to the ground. Gascoigne breathed loudly as he stood up, having plunged down with all his body to cleave through the neck. Henrik managed to sit up, but could not shake the feeling of emptiness. So profound was it that he started to fear it would never leave.
Hunter blunderbuss. A blunderbuss created at the workshop for the hunter's line of work. Hunter firearms are especially crafted to employ quicksilver bullets fused with the wielder's own blood, boosting damage against beasts. The impact of this highly effective weapon counters beasts' swift movement, and its wide spread is nigh on guaranteed to hit the mark.